Hey guys, Carl from Purple Moose Place. Today I'm going to be doing something a little bit differently than I've been doing, in that today I'm going to be reviewing two games at the same time, both from Button Shy Games, and both from designers Steven Aramini, Danny Devine, and Paul Kluge. And those games are Circle the Wagons and Sprawlopolis. I decided I was going to do this because originally I was going to just be doing a playthrough and review of Circle the Wagons, and I realized that inevitably in my review I would definitely be making connections to Sprawlopolis. And I figured I'd probably also do a playthrough of Sprawlopolis, and likewise I'd be referring to Circle the Wagons in my description and my thoughts on that game. So I figured why not put the two of them together and do it all in one video. Now what that does mean is that this video is going to be a little bit longer than my videos usually are, and I completely understand if you don't want to sit through the entire thing if you only want to find out about one game. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a bunch of timestamps down below and break it up into pieces, so if you want to jump ahead to the game that you're interested in, that's fine. If you want to sit through the whole thing, that's great. I'd love to have you for the whole entire video. And then at the end, I'm going to come back and I'll talk about both games. So again, jump around, watch what you're interested in. If you want to stick around for the whole thing, please do. And at the end, if you've got any comments, leave some comments down below. With that being said, let me explain what these two games are, and then we'll get into my playthrough. So the first game is Circle the Wagons. Circle the Wagons is a two-player head-to-head card drafting game that you're going to use the cards you drafted to build a tableau and score points based on grouping of the same type of space next to each other, and also based on scoring goal conditions that you'll be choosing every game when you play. In addition to this, it's got a solo variant that comes with a small expansion called the Lone Cowboy expansion, and that's what I'm going to be focused on today for my playthrough. So we're going to do a solo playthrough using the Lone Cowboy expansion for Circle the Wagons. In this case, the gameplay is basically the same, where we're going to be drafting cards and building a tableau in order to score more points than the AI for the scenario that we're playing. Sprawlopolis is a very similar game in that we are going to use the cards we have to build a tableau, scoring based on groupings of the same type of area, and also based on bonus goals or scoring goals that we have on cards that are chosen at the beginning of the game. However, Sprawlopolis, while it is also a multiplayer game, will play up to 4 players, but this is a cooperative game. Everybody's working together, building the same tableau and scoring as a group, trying to beat a goal score that's given to you by the cards that you're using to play the game. The solo game in this case, because it's cooperative, is identically the same as the multiplayer game, except that you're playing and laying cards down by yourself. So let's get down and see how these games play, and then I'll come back up and tell you what I think. So before we get started, I just want to show you that I don't yet have a physical copy of the Lone Cowboy expansion, so I will be using a print and play version of the expansion for this video. The cards are all the same, but you might catch some glare, so I apologize in advance if there's any glare from my sleeves. But as you can see, the card backs, I just got a piece of paper with a playing card stuck behind it. But that won't affect the game. These don't get shuffled into the regular deck, and my main copy of the game is an official copy of the game. So to set up a solo game of Circle the Wagons with the Lone Cowboy expansion, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to select one of those 6 scenario cards. So I'm going to shuffle those up, and we will select one at random. So for this game, we're going to be playing Through the Desert. The first thing we're going to do to set up this game is we're going to find the 2 scoring goal cards that are listed on the scenario card. So I'm going to put this down for a minute and I'll explain what this does later when we talk about gameplay and scoring. Again, I apologize for the glare, but I'll make sure to pick up that card whenever it's important to look at. So again, I want to find Wagon Train and Badlands. So we look through this deck, I found Wagon Trains here and Badlands. So these cards are going to tell me how we're going to score, especially for this game. In a normal 2-player game, we're actually going to choose 3 of these, but for the solo game with the AI, we're only using the 2 that it shows on the AI card. So before I talk about those special scoring goal conditions, let's talk about how the game scores in general. At the end of the game, you're going to have a tableau of cards in front of you that might look something like this. And we'll talk about card placement a little bit later. I just want to talk about scoring while it's on the board. So you might see something that looks kind of like this. So what you're going to do is you will find there are 6 different types of territory: plains, forests, water, snow, mountains, and desert. And you're going to count the number of those territory squares in your largest grouping of each territory. So for example, here I see a forest is 1, 2, 3, 4. Here I see desert is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here I have water here and water here. I don't count both of those, I only count one, only my largest grouping. In this case, they're both the same, so I would count 1 point for water. So I'm going to add up all 6 of my territories for my score. But for the AI, they're only scoring their most common 3 territory types. So I'm going to add up the largest group of each territory and then find the 3 that have the most number of squares of that territory. And they only get points for those 3. So that's the main scoring. We'll come back to that again later in the game, but I just wanted to introduce that before we talk about the scenario scores. So now we're going to take a look at the goal cards that I've chosen, or that were chosen for me based on the scenario card. So we've got Badlands. Badlands says we're going to score 4 points per single gun directly between 2 desert territories. So just like this picture shows, I want to have 2 desert territories with a gun in between, and every time I have that pattern, I score 4 points. So if I could be lucky enough to have 2 deserts here and then a desert above and below, I could score 4 points off of a single gun. And if we can find a way to chain more of those, we can score points fairly easily. I like that one. It's worth mentioning, it doesn't matter what symbol is on these deserts, and it doesn't matter what territory type is under that gun. The other scoring goal we're going to be using this game is Wagon Train. Wagon Train says we're scoring points per adjacent wagon in a straight line, horizontal or vertical. And then if you have intersecting lines of wagons, both lines score. That means if I have a cross, the wagon that's at the center of that cross is going to score twice as far as the scoring goes. So we're going to look at these lines, and we're going to score points based on how many wagons are in that line. And we'll score each line separately, so we can score this one multiple times. So let's put these down here, but before we do that, I want to take a look back at this scenario card, because the scenario card is going to instruct us how the AI scores these goals. The AI is going to score things a little bit differently. So for the wagon trains, they're actually just going to score, it says the first 6 wagons score as normal, and then +2 for each additional wagon. That's because the AI is not going to have a tableau, they're just going to have a stack of cards. So we're going to count the first 6 wagons as normal, meaning if we look back at that goal card, they're going to score 15 points, or up to 15 points, 1, 3, 6, 10, 15, for the first 6 wagons. And then 2 for each additional wagon. So if they had 8 wagons, they'd have 15, +2 for 7, and +2 for 8, so they'd be scoring 19 points if they had 8 wagons. So that's how they will score the Wagon Train card. Let's take a look at the Badlands. Badlands, again, is that gun in between the deserts, but again, they don't have a tableau, so placement doesn't matter. So instead, the AI is going to score 4 points per set of gun in deserts. So we're just going to add up how many guns they have, how many deserts they have, and then give them 4 points per set. I hope that makes sense, but we'll see that again when we do scoring at the end of the game. Alright, so to continue setting up this game, the next thing we need to do is we need to create our sort of draft pile of cards. So we're going to start by taking the remaining 16 cards and shuffling them up. And then we're going to do this. We'll cut the deck exactly in half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's going to go sort of in the middle of our draft pile. And then we're going to put the remaining 8 cards in a circle around that center card. Let's fix that up a little bit so it's easier to see for you. That looks good. All right. So let's talk a little bit about how the game plays. Just to mention, if this were a 2-player game, this pile in the middle wouldn't be here. You'd have all 16 cards in a circle. But otherwise, the general style of play doesn't change between the multiplayer game or the 2-player game and the solo game. So what we're going to do is, on your turn, you're going to choose one card to draft. And we're starting here and going clockwise around this circle. So for example, I could choose this card to draft. And I would draft this card and I would place it into my tableau. But I can also choose to skip this card and draw the next one, or skip these two cards and take this next one. I can draft any card I want in that order, but every card that I skip is given to my opponent. So if I took this card and put this into my tableau, then these two cards would be given to my opponent. And that's the same in the solo game and the multiplayer game. Right? If we were playing with the two-player game, I would give that to my opponent, and then it would be their turn. They would draft as they chose and give any cards they skip to me. In the solo game, I will be going first as the player, drafting just as I showed you, and then the AI will take their turn to draft. But the AI is going to draft a little bit differently. And the way the AI drafts is going to depend on which round we're playing. In the solo game, we're going to play 2 rounds. The first round will be these 8 cards around the outside. Once we've drafted all of those, this middle deck, whatever is remaining, will be put into a circle and we'll draft for a second round. In the first round, the AI is looking at the first 3 cards. And what it's going to do is this. It's going to draft this card unless it can match one of the 4 symbols, meaning the picture and the territory type, on one of those cards. And it will skip up to 2 cards to match something in the center. So in this case, if we look at this card, we're going to see right away that there's a green cow, or mountains cow. There's also a bottle and plains, both of which match on the center card. If they match on the center card, they will take both the drafting card and the center card and add it to their pile of cards. So for example, if the cards had been reversed, in this case, none of these match the center card. So the AI will skip this card and take this card plus the center card, meaning this card has been skipped and that will come to my tableau. And I can place it as I'd like to in my tableau. So again, in the first round, the AI will skip up to 2 cards. So it's looking at the first 3 cards and it will choose the first card with something that matches exactly on the middle card. In the second round, the AI is going to have a stack of cards. And instead of matching the center, because there will be no center left, the AI is going to try and match something on the top card of its pile of cards. However, in the second round, it will only skip 1 card to do so. It will never skip 2 cards. In addition, every scenario card offers a unique drafting rule as well. In this case, the card says the AI will skip to a card. It will only skip 1, right? It will skip 1 to a card with 2 or more wagons, guns, or deserts. Because remember, our Badlands and Wagon Train cards are scoring based on wagons, guns, and deserts. So it wants to have as many of those as it can. So in this case, it will skip 1 to try and get 2 wagons, 2 guns, or 2 deserts if possible. And it's worth noting this scenario drafting rule in the second round will always come before the normal drafting rule in the second round. So let's reset. So I've sort of given you an overview of the scoring and an overview of how the game works, how the drafting works. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I'll explain the rest of the rules as we play. So on my turn, I get to go first. I'm drafting a card. Again, I want guns between deserts, and I want lots of wagons in a row. So if I'm looking at these cards right now, this card has a desert, but there's no guns, there's no wagons. It's not great. This card has 3 wagons and a desert, and the wagons form what's looking like a cross. This could be the start of 2 lines of wagon if I take that card. So I really, really like that card. I don't like necessarily to give him a card, but in this case it might be worth it. The only worry is I'm looking at this next card, and that's going to be really good for him as well. But there's not much that I can do to avoid that. However, we will look a little bit closer because he may accidentally skip that to get something that matches this middle card. But let's look at that in a minute. I'm going to start by taking this card, and I'll place it into my tableau. Right now I don't have to worry about how it's placed, but I will explain placement as soon as I take my second card. Now because I skipped this card will be added to the AI's pile. Alright, so now it's the AI's turn to draft, and what it's going to do, as I mentioned, is it's going to try and match anything on this middle card. Because remember, it's also scoring in addition to these 2 goals. It's scoring based on its 3 most common territory types. So the more cards it has, the more likely it is to have some matching territories. So let's take a look at what we've got. We look first at this first card, nothing matches in the center. However, if we take a look at this second card, this cow in the forest there matches perfectly with this cow right here. So he's actually not going to take this, which is going to work out really nicely for me. He's instead going to take this card and this card, and both of them will go into his set. So now it's my turn, but first I get this card for free. Now, we need to be careful here, because this could be great, but also it could hurt me if I'm not paying attention. I like this wagon in this row of wagons, but remember my wagon train card says it scores per set of adjacent wagons in a straight line, not just wagons in the same row or column. So I need to make sure they're adjacent. But also, I want this gun to be between deserts. So I could do this, in which case the gun is between deserts, but then that extra wagon doesn't score me anything. And I could do this to make more red real close together, but then I'm losing those 2 wagons, so I don't want to do that either. So I think what I'm going to do is this. If I flip this upside down, so let me talk a little bit about placement. These cards must always be placed in vertical alignment. So it could be placed this way, it could be placed this way. It can never be placed horizontally. And when we're matching, it could be placed matching 2, it could be placed matching 1, and it could cover up as much of the previous card as I'd like to do. So again, we're trying to find territories that match to score big points for our largest group of each territory type. But I think in this case, I want to add to my wagon chain, or wagon train, as the card says, doing that, because now also this gun has potential, if I could get another desert covering that corner, to score for deserts on either side. So let's stop there and see what else we can get. All right, now it's my turn to draft. I can do a few things. I can take a look at these cards coming up and see if anything matches here. And I see that this one does match. And this is only going to help him by giving him a gun, which is okay. Actually, this one matches too. So if I take this, he's going to take this, and that doesn't help him at all. So yeah, let's do that. I'll take this and let's see what we can do. I've got a wagon. I've also got a desert that I could put on the other side of that gun. Now, I could do all kinds of things with this. If I put this up here somewhere or over here somewhere, I can extend my red or my desert area to add a point. This would also put a desert on either side of the gun, scoring the gun, but I'm killing that wagon. I think in this case, I'm actually going to sacrifice 1 desert space in order to put this here, because now I add a wagon to my line, and now I've got a desert on either side of my gun. So I like that placement. I'm also sort of building a mountain area up here at the top, so I want to focus on that later when I start adding more mountains, if possible. All right, so then his turn. The AI is going to draft again. Again, this gun matches this gun. It's going to take both of these, which is going to add 2 guns to its stack of cards, which is not great, but I haven't put a whole lot of desert in there, and it needs pairs of desert and gun, so I should be okay for right now. So it comes back to me to draft again. Now, looking at this, I don't see a whole lot here that I like. However, I do have several options for guns, and that might not be bad to have. So what I see here is, yeah, I like this card because it's going to give me 3 snow potential. And if I can put Well, I may end up killing that snow, but this is going to be potentially interesting. If I put this here... If I put that here... Yeah, that's not going to matter. I was going to put this here so I could get a red here and score that gun and start scoring this gun, but this is already here. So I'm okay with... Anyway, I'm going to put this here. And then that gives me two options. I can always put a red here or a red here to score this gun or score this gun. We'll figure that out as it comes out. But for right now, I have a nice snow area of 3. It's a shame I couldn't do anything with that water and this water, but they're not going to match nicely. Yeah, no, that doesn't help at all because this gun's not going to ever score double desert out that far. So let's spin this and hope we get lucky. Alright, so that means the AI is going to draft this card to end the first round. Alright, so for the second round we're going to do the same thing. We'll take what cards are left here and we'll make a circle out of that. Remember, the AI just drafted, so it will be my turn to start. And also remembering now that we're in the second round, the AI will only skip one card to match, and this time it's matching the card that's showing on its stack of cards, or our unique round draft rule, it's going to skip to a card with 2 or more wagons, guns, or deserts. So we'll keep that in mind. So my turn to start. This is interesting. I do have a wagon option, but that also gives me a red option. And another wagon, but that wagon doesn't really help me. Again, he's looking for wagons, guns, and deserts. And we'll skip to get 2 or more. If I take that, it just means I need to find more desert to score those guns, and it's getting late in the game, so I don't think that's going to happen. And again, I don't think he has a whole lot of desert, and he's only scoring for pairs of desert and guns. So I don't have a problem giving him that card, although giving him extra cards always means he scores extra for territory, so that does worry me a little bit, but I want those reds. Yeah. I'm going to take this card and I'm going to place it here, which is going to add to my red territory, potentially later connect to my mountains if I want it to. And it doesn't hurt my snow because it connects an extra snow there. All right, so the AI is drafting. It's going to look here and here. And remember, our special rule says it's going to skip if it can find us a card that has 2 or more guns, 2 or more wagons, or 2 or more desert. And in this case, this card does have 2 or more guns, so it's going to take this card, which means I automatically receive this card. Now, this card's not helping me a whole lot. However, I don't have any planes in my set yet. So just by getting this, I'm going to score 1 for having planes. I would love to find a way to score that gun. I don't think it's going to happen this game, however. So I'm going to place this. I would love to connect this gray, but there's no way to put that gray to match. I could connect this green. No, I'm just going to stick this up here. Let's go all the way up. Yeah, let's go all the way up. I'm just looking at the next cards to see if there's anywhere else that I can grow to make a row. No, I'm just going to leave it at that. And we'll see what happens next. Alright, then I get to draft. Now I'm going to look ahead at the cards that are showing and I'm going to try and figure out how best to trick out the AI. Because I know he wants to take cards that have 2 wagons, 2 guns, or 2 deserts. There are no cards with 2 wagons. There are no cards with 2 deserts, but there is a card here with 2 guns. So I know if I take this card, in the next round, he's going to take this card. So I'm going to get this card automatically. So let's aim that way. So then I'm going to take this card and I'm going to add this card here. It doesn't give me any of those bonus scoring, but it's going to add another to my mountain area and it's going to add another to my plains area. So I like that. And as I already said, the AI is going to take this card, which means I get this card. And with this card, I've got some options. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 wagons in a row. If I add this here, that gets me an extra 5 points. If I add this here on the other side of the gun, it gets me an extra 4 points. Yeah, and doesn't score anything else. If I add this here, I get an extra, going from 2 to 3 gets me 2 points and nothing else connects. Is there no way I can score multiples? I don't think so. If I'm missing something, I'm sorry, but that's the way the game works. All right, I'm going to then just put this down here so that I have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, that's only 5. So that's only scoring 4 anyway. I thought that was already 5. All right, in that case, that's not as great as I expected. If I do that. Yeah, there's no real difference. Just to make it look a little prettier, I'm gonna fit that in right there, which will end up scoring that gun. All right, so to finish, we're going to do scoring. I'm going to put a little picture down here in the bottom of the screen that will show how the scoring works. All right, to help show the scoring, I'm actually going to use a scoring card that I found on BGG. I'll put a link in the description below, so if you want to use that card yourself, you can find it. It might make things a little nicer and easier for you. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to start by scoring my own play area. So again, we start by counting territories. I'm going to start by counting deserts. So my biggest desert area is here in the middle, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 points for deserts. And then I'm going to look at forests. Unfortunately, I only have this one and this one, each worth 1 point, so I will score 1 for forests. Next, I'm looking at snow. I've got 2 sets of snow. My biggest one is over here, is only 3, so I score 3 for snow. Taking a look at mountains, my biggest mountain area is up here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we move to plains. I didn't get it connected, so we've only got a 2 up in this corner. And for water, we just have these 2 single spaces, so I get 1 point for water. So my total then is 4 plus 1 is 5, plus 3 is 8, plus 5 is 13, plus 2 is 15, plus 1 is 16 for my territories. Let's count that again. 1 plus 2 is 3, and 5 is 8, and 3 is 11, and 1 is 12, and 4 is 16. Great. So on this card, you'll see there are 3 bonuses. We're only using 2 in the solo player, so I'll cross that one off. We start with Badlands. Badlands again says 4 points per gun directly between 2 desert territories. We've got this one. Unfortunately, it happened twice, but we're counting per gun, so I don't get to score that twice. So that's 4 points for that one. And this gun again is between these 2 desert spaces, so that's 4 for that. So we score 8 bonus points for that. And then next, we're looking at wagon train. And I'm going to find every train, straight line of wagons in a row, and we'll score based on how many there are. So here I've got 2 in a row. That gets me 1 point. Here I've got 4 in a row. That gets me 6 points. And I believe that's all that I've got. I didn't do great with that. So 6 plus 1 is going to be 7. 8 and 7 is 15. So my total, 16 plus 15, will be 31 points for me. All right, Then, for the AI, we're going to count his cards. And again, we're going to use his scoring card, which says, well, sorry, let's start with the territories first. For the AI, we're going to count territories. I'm going to start by looking for deserts. 1, 2. So we're going to start with a 2 in deserts. Remember, the AI is only scoring for its 3 largest or 3 most common territory types. So we're going to look at those after I count them all. Next, I'm counting forest. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let me try that one more time to make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for forest. Then we count snow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6. Let me check one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 points for snow. Next is mountains. 1, 2. And then plains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And finally, water. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Wow, that's a big one. Let me double check that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, so again, we're scoring the 3 largest territories or most common territories. I see an 8, I see a 6, and I see a 9. 8 plus 6 plus 9. 8 and 6 is 14, and 9 is 23. So now we score the bonuses. And again, we take a look at our AI card, the scenario card. It says it's scoring the first 6 wagons as normal, and then 2 for each additional wagon. So let's start there. Let's count wagons. Nothing, nothing. 1, 2, 3, just 3. Let me double check that, but I think that was right. 1, 2, just 3. And again, looking at our card, 3 scores only 3 points. So for bonus 1, the AI only gets 3 points. The second one says that it's scoring 4 points per set of guns in desert. Right now we know we only have 2 deserts. So let's take a look at guns. Well, just looking at these first 2 cards, we already have more than 2 guns, but we're looking for sets, so I can't do any more. So that's 2 sets. They score 4 points per 2 sets is 8, which is 11. Means their total score is 34. To set up a game of Sprawlopolis, we're going to begin by shuffling the cards. And then we're going to draw the top 3 cards and turn them over to the back side. I'll explain what this means as soon as I've gotten all 3 cards turned over. So you'll see on the back of every card, there's a sort of a description with a graphic on card, and there's also a number up here in the top left corner. I'm going to focus on this number in the top left corner to begin. So what we're going to do is we're going to add these 3 numbers together. So 15 and 12 should be 27, plus 1 is 28. This is going to be the scoring goal that we're aiming for by the end of the game. So at the end of the game, if I can score 28 points or higher, I've successfully won the game. The other thing that these cards are showing us are some unique scoring goals that we're going to be aiming for during this game. And I'll try my best to explain these now, but they will make more sense as we see how the game is played. So we'll look at this first one here. It says Superhighway. We're going to score 1 point for every 2 road sections that are part of your longest road. So let's take a look at what these cards look like. Every card in the game is going to be divided up into 4 blocks, and each block is going to be a unique zone type. There are 4 different zone types in the game, which is industrial, commercial, residential, and parks. So this scoring card is going to look at only our longest road. Okay, every card is going to have 1 or 2 roads on it. So we want to connect roads together. And our longest road is going to score 1 point for every 2 blocks that road goes through. So that's our first scoring goal. The next goal we have is Skid Row. This says we're going to score 2 points for every residential block, or orange block, that's adjacent to 2 or more industrial blocks, which are the gray blocks. So I want to have orange blocks next to 2 or more gray blocks. And finally, number 1 here is the outskirts. This is going to give me 1 point for road that does not end at the edge of the city. And I'm going to lose 1 point for every road that does end at the edge of the city. So this is going to be a little bit tricky with superhighway, right? I want a long road, but if it touches the edge of the city, I'm going to lose a point. So if we can try and get one road inside the city, that would be great. Or if we can keep it to only one really long road, I can score a lot of points for superhighway. And if it's only one road, even if it touches the end, I'll only have a -1 point. So that's not horrible as long as we can focus on building big roads. Skid Row is going to be a little bit tricky as well, and let me explain why. In this game, we're going to be drawing these cards, and we're going to be laying them down. These cards can be placed, we're going to be placing them horizontally, and these cards can be placed in such a way that they line up with 2 blocks touching 2 blocks, 1 block touching 1 block, or they can be overlapped in any way that you'd like, covering as many blocks as you'd like, so long as it keeps that same orientation. And you can also not place cards diagonally like this. They need to be touching at least 1 block to another block. Now, the reason I said Skid Row is going to be tricky is it wants us to have these orange blocks or residential blocks next to gray industrial blocks. But the other way that we score in this game is, at the end of the game, we're going to score our largest section or zone or area of a particular type. So if at the end of the game I have multiple parks next to each other, my largest area or grouping of parks is going to score 1 point per block of parks. So I would really like to keep as many orange blocks or residential blocks next to each other as possible. But this card is rewarding me for having gray blocks next to orange blocks. What that means is it's going to break up my largest groupings. So I need to pay attention to both have largest groupings, but maybe then surround the outside of that largest group of residential with these gray industrial blocks. That'll become clearer as we play the game. So after we've chosen the goals, we're going to shuffle up the cards, and we're going to draw 3 cards. These 3 cards become our hand for the rest of the game. And we're going to be placing cards and taking cards as we play, but we start with these 3 cards. If you were playing this as a multiplayer game, the remaining players would each get 1 card. And I'll explain how that works as we continue explaining the rules, but I'm going to be focusing on a solo game today. So what I'm going to do first, before we start the game, is I'm then going to take this top card from the deck, after all players have drawn cards, and place this in the center of my area. This is going to be my starting card. Everything we play from now on will be building off of this card. So now, on my turn, I have 3 cards. Again, I can place these down any way that I want to so that they touch. In 2 places, in 1 place, overlapping. I just can't rotate them vertically, but I could rotate it this way and place it horizontally, again, overlapping or adjacent. We cannot place them diagonal, as I mentioned before. So on my turn, I'm going to be placing 1 card, and then after I've placed 1 card, I will draw the next card to my hand. So we can always see here what the next card is that's coming up to my hand. So we're going to be placing, again, keeping in mind that we want large areas of the same zone type, and that we want to be scoring these 3 cards. So I want long road, I want orange or residential that are touching gray industrial blocks, and I want to make sure that my roads are internal and not external. So let's see what we can do. I've got these 3 cards, and I need to place on that. So I already see there's a gray here, or sorry, an orange here that's touching a gray, but it's not adjacent, so that's not scoring Skid Row. They're diagonal, so that's not going to matter. I do have a pretty long road there, so if I can continue roads, that wouldn't be a bad idea. And I see on this card, I've got another 3-block road, which is great. And that's an orange and a gray. So if I put that there, oh, actually, that's an orange and a gray already. So that orange is already now touching 2 gray zones. So we're good. I like that. That'll score me 2 points for Skid Row. So then I draw another card, and we continue to look. All right, I want to continue roads. I also want to start building areas of the same type. I like this, maybe. I don't like that this gives me extra road pieces, so we may end up playing with that later. But I like this green-green and this gray-gray combination, so I'm going to keep it like that for now, and we'll try another card and see what happens. All right. Well, actually, this is interesting. If I place this here, it's going to extend my park. I now have this orange-gray pair here. If I could get another gray there, that wouldn't be a bad thing. And I've also now just extended my longest road. So I'm going to leave that there, and we'll see how that plays out. All right, I don't like any of those to fix this situation. I wouldn't mind if this connected, but that would end my road, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Nope. And I just realized I have this 3 park in the middle, but that's not great because it's sort of dead ending. I wouldn't mind grays over here. If I put this here, I'm connecting orange, gray, orange, gray. That scores points now. And if I can tie this gray in here, that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. There's one more thing that I forgot to mention in the final scoring. And I'm generally pretty bad about it, but we'll see how it plays out in this. I'll do my best. The superhighway might help a little bit. But the problem is, at the end of the game, we're going to count the number of individual roads that aren't connected to each other. So in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 roads. And I lose 1 point for each road that I have. So I want to try and connect the roads as much as possible, or cover roads with other things as much as possible to avoid those negative points at the end of the game. All right. Then I need to start blocking off some of these roads, because right now all of my roads are touching the outside, which is bad news. But I'm generally bad about that. So let's see what's going to happen here. Let's see here. I want some blues to be touching blues. I want some grays to be touching grays. I'm going to do that. That's giving me a potential new starter on a park, because this is only 3 and I've sort of blocked myself in. Yeah, let's see how that plays out. Alrighty. Then I got blue down here. If I put that there, I've extended my blue, I've extended my longest road. There's a potential that I can overlap something here to turn this road back into this one, or to change this completely if I put something else down. So I'm going to do that, and we'll see how that plays out. My orange is all over the place. Right now my largest orange is only 1 square. I mentioned Skid Row was going to kill me. That's not far off, so we got to figure out what's going on. I did just lose that gray. This has 2 grays. This has 1. I need gray here. I need gray here. I need to reconnect gray there. I'm not doing exceptionally well. Well, that's the wrong direction for blue. You know what? I'm gonna do that. That gets me a gray for this one and this one, so now those are both scoring. And it builds on this park over here. But I just destroyed my blue area. So I need to start building more gray, more blue. And I need to figure out what's going on with this longest road. Well, let's do this in the hopes that we can start working on a blue area. I've extended my longest road. And yeah, I don't know how great that was, but we can maybe get some grays in here to connect to that gray area. I do also have this park down here that I could expand on. I'm not sure how much I care at this point. Let's figure this out. Gray can go there. I'll do that. That's not great, but it adds to my gray, and we might be able to play with that in a minute. Yeah, I'm starting to worry about my orange area. I don't have anything orange that's helping me at all. Let's do this. Start building on orange up there. Okay. There's some orange there. Alright, so here's the last three cards. I will be playing them. I mentioned earlier, sorry, I forgot to talk. If you were playing a multiplayer game, every time you play a card, you would then pass the 2 cards to the next player, and the next player would then have 3 cards and play one and pass the 2 to the next player. So it's going to be the same thing in the multiplayer game. You're going to have 3 cards in your hand and you will be playing one. But instead of taking one from the deck and then playing again, you'd be passing 2, taking one from the deck, and then when 2 cards came back to you again, you would play with those 3. So it's not too much different. But let's go ahead and finish this out and see what we can do. I'm not super confident that I'm going to be scoring very well in this game, but let's see what happens. Well, if I do that, I score on that orange up there. Let's see. I got a 4 group of gray here, a 3 of orange, 3 of green. I'd like to extend a blue and a green somewhere if possible. Well, I can do that and get a 3 of blue and extend my road. And then it looks like the biggest green I'm going to possibly be able to get is 4. Oh, you know what? I'll do that. If I put this here, I score that orange and I get more green. So now that we're done placing cards, we need to get into the scoring. To score the game, there's actually a really great app that you can download that will help you score the game. So I'm going to make use of that app, and I will put the score using that app down here in the bottom corner. Alright, so let's go ahead and score this game. So first thing we're going to do in the app is I want to select the 3 scoring cards I have so I know what the goal is that I'm aiming for. So scoring card 1 should be number 12, Superhighway. Scoring card 2 we've got as Skid Row, number 15. And then scoring card 3 is number 1, the Outskirts. So you'll see up in the top right corner of the scoring sheet, My goal is 28. So we're trying to get to a score of 28. So let's see how well we did. The first thing I want to do before we get to the score cards, the goal cards, is I want to look for my biggest area of the 4 different types, zone types: residential, industrial, commercial, and parks. So let's see. I know here my largest green area, or largest park, is 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to get 4 points for park. Industrial, I think I see my largest area is here, also 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 points for industrial. My largest commercial area, or blue area, should be up here in the top. I've got 1, 2, 3. And then my largest residential area, I managed to get a nice little one in here, also 1, 2, 3. Now let's take a look at the 3 scoring cards. I'm going to bring them up close to refresh your memory. The first one, Superhighway, says 1 point for every 2 road sections that are part of my longest road, and that's rounded down. So my longest road is this one, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 long. So I'm going to score 8 points for Superhighway. Next, Skid Row is scoring 2 points for every residential block or orange block that's adjacent to 2 or more industrial blocks. So let's find these. It's going to be a little bit trickier to find these, but we can do it. I've got 1, 2, no, 3, 4, 5, 6. Unfortunately, those didn't get it. So it looks like I've got 6, so 2 points each, should be 12 points. I did pretty well on Skid Row. Next, outskirts. 1 point for every road that does not end at the edge of the city, and -1 for every road that ends at the edge of the city. So inside it looks like I have 1, 2. Wow, okay, only 2 roads that don't touch the edge. And touching the edge I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let me double check that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let me try one more time, different numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I definitely have 9 roads touching the outside. So that's -9 plus 2 means I get a -7 for that score. That's really bad. And what we still haven't done yet is roads. Well, we should know now that there should be, what do we say, 9 and 2. So there should be 11 roads, but let's double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 roads. So my 11 is going to be a -11. I believe the app does the negative automatically, so I will put 11. And you'll see that my final score is only 16 points. My goal was 28, so unfortunately I didn't hit the goal and I lost this game. But I hope I gave a good idea of how the game plays. You'll also see on the scoring sheet, if you look underneath the section where we're scoring each zone, it says hard, only 1 score. So you could play a hard mode in this game where only scoring your largest area of the 4 zone types. So you'd only choose 1 zone type and score whichever your highest scoring zone is. Also with the road section, you can see a checkbox that says easy, do not tax roads. So you could play in easy mode where the roads are not taxed. Unfortunately, in this case, even if I played the easy mode, my score is only 27, so I still didn't manage to win the game. While we're down here, I want to talk a little bit about components, but also before I do that, I want to show you some expansion content. Sprawlopolis currently has 4 different mini expansions that you can get for the game. The first mini expansion is called Points of Interest. Points of Interest gives you a single card that looks like this. It's double-sided, and on each side you're going to see 2 points of interest that are surrounded by this yellow block. So on this side, you've got these 2, And on the other side, you've got the opposite two colors that are colored. So what you're going to do is you're going to put this down before you play a starting card at the beginning of the game. And the starting card is going to cover half of this card. And then what you're going to do is, when you've covered half of this card, you're going to have one block that is a point of interest. You see this yellow border around it. At the end of the game, if you can have the same type of area adjacent to that area, you're going to score 1 point for each of those adjacent blocks that match the same type. So there are 4 different possibilities for that type, depending on how you start your game. That's the points of interest expansion. Another mini expansion that comes, or that can be used with this game, is construction zones. Construction zones comes with 4 cards. Each of the 4 cards has one area that is a construction zone. So what you're going to do is, at the start of your game, in addition to the 3 scoring goals that you'd normally choose, you're going to flip over one of these. And this is going to give you 2 different things. This is going to give you a specific placement rule for how you play the construction cards. And it's also going to give you some kind of negative point score if you don't complete construction. And complete construction means, at the end of the game, this construction space must be covered by something else. And if it's not covered, you're going to score whatever the negative says on the back of this card. And again, the job details tell me how to play the cards. So these 3 cards will be shuffled in with the other cards when you're playing the game. And this says, for example, when I have a construction block, if I have a construction block with this card showing, I have to play the construction block. I can't play anything else. Another example might be, I have to place the construction on the outside of the city when it's played. It can't be placed inside. And in this case, if it's not completed, I'm scoring 2 points for every residential block that's touching it. So in this case, maybe I don't need to complete it. I just need to make sure that there's no residential area around the construction area. So this gives me alternate negatives that I need to avoid, and also puts some restrictions on how to play these specific cards. That's the construction zones expansion. The next mini expansion is called Beaches. Beaches also comes with 4 cards. And what you're going to do in this case is, you're going to, in addition to your normal scoring goals, flip over one of the beaches, and you're actually going to get another scoring goal that's related to these beaches cards. So for example, this one will give you 1 point if you have a residential card that's touching the beach. And the other cards will get shuffled in with the deck and be played as normal cards. So what's going to happen is, your beaches cards are either going to have a beach on a side or on the top bottom of a card. And when you play this card, it's going to put a hard edge to your city. So that means once this beach card is played, you can't build anything beyond that beach in this direction. Or once this beach card is played, you can't build anything to the right of this card. So it adds a sort of border to your city to sort of force you to grow your city in a certain direction. And it also offers other individual scoring goals. You will notice that these scoring goals don't have a number, so this doesn't affect your total scoring goal, right? So if you play with beaches, you're going to score extra points, but you're not going to have to gain any more points to win the game. So that means these actually make the game a little bit easier if you can get around the constraints of the hard edges to your city. And the last mini expansion for this game is called Rectar. And this is extremely mini expansion. It's a single card. And the back of this card is just how to play with this card. So it's really just a single card, single-sided. And what this is going to do is, you're going to shuffle this card into your deck. And as soon as it's drawn from the deck, it must be played instantly directly on top of the last card that was played. So for example, if I had this set up in my town, and this was the most recent card played, as soon as this is drawn, I need to place this directly on top of that card. And for the rest of the game, Rectar, this lizard character here in the corner, can never be covered. You could cover these 3 sides, or sorry, these 3 blocks, but you cannot cover Rectar. And then what's going to happen is, at the end of the game, for any other commercial district, right, these blue districts, Any other commercial district that's in the same row or column as Rektar is going to score -2 points. So you need to make sure that there's no more blue in his row or his column. And at the end of the game, if that happens again, you get those negative points. If it does not happen, means if you were able to make it so that there's no commercial zones this way in its row or column, you're actually going to gain 3 points, as it said that the threat of the Rektar has been neutralized. So that one gives you just a little bit more negatives to deal with and more constraints to work around when building your city. There are a few more expansions coming out for the game, and I'll talk a little bit more about those when I give my final thoughts at the end of this video. In addition, while we're down here, I'd like to take a look at the components of the game. Just like every button shy game, Sprawlopolis comes in a wallet. I really like the look of this. The font is pretty cool. The road on there works as a nice underline, but also pulls in the theme of the game. And this blue color is cool. I don't know if you can see it well, but it's sort of got a black speckled look to it. I like that a lot. It's not a flat color that doesn't look boring. It's a nice looking wallet. The cards, well, the cards are nice. I mean, the back is really nice. The goals are great. It's really easy to see. They've given you some really great diagrams to explain the rules very well. The wording on them is straightforward and pretty clear. The front of the cards, I have mixed feelings about. They look really nice, right? It really pops as a city. Each individual block has some really nice things here. You can see a baseball diamond. You can see smokestacks here in this industrial district. You know, the parking lot here in the commercial district. They're very well drawn, and they're very sort of full of life and character, and each block is really, really uniquely different. But that being said, they're a little bit busy for me. When I'm playing the game, I realize I'm only meant to be looking at the road and the different colors, but sometimes it gives me a little bit of trouble trying to figure out where to place things just because of all the busyness on the board. So I'm wondering if it may have been a little bit clearer, at least for me, if there was a little bit less going on in each of those blocks. Next, we should go back and look at the components from Circle the Wagons, because I haven't done that yet. So here's the wallet for Circle the Wagons. This one I really, really, really like. I mean, Sprawlopolis is very nice, but I prefer the look of the Circle the Wagons. This brown sort of leathered look looks really nice, and this very big poppy logo for the game on the front, it's really eye-catching, and I really like this wallet. The cards themselves, and here we can compare now that we have both of them out at the same time. The cards themselves, I really prefer the look of Circle the Wagons. It's very, very clear, very beautifully drawn icons, and the background has some texture to it, but it's very clearly colored, and the texture doesn't really bother me. And if you're colorblind, the textures definitely help you identify which color or which type each one is. The scoring on the back, I mean, they're both equally good. They're very clear to see. Again, the diagrams are very descriptive, so it's very helpful to have. I do like this sort of map in the background. This is a nice artistic touch, whereas the Sprawlopolis one just sort of has this grid look. It's not bad, but I do prefer the look of the Circle the Wagons cards. And again, my Lone Cowboy expansion is print and play, so I don't have a back to show you what the back is. But these are very well written, very easy, very clear to understand. So I have zero problems with these. They look very nice. So meet me back up top and we'll talk about what I think of the two games. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this playthrough. If you sat through both of them, I hope you enjoyed both of them. If you only saw one, that's great too. But let's talk a little bit about what I think. If you did see both of the playthroughs, you might guess, based on how I played and how I talked while I was playing, that I greatly prefer Circle the Wagons over Sprawlopolis. And I'll try and get into a little bit about why that is in this, but I also want to talk about what I like and what I don't like about each of these games. So let's start by comparing them, I guess, because I can't get away with not comparing them. The difference is, obviously Circle the Wagons has the drafting mechanic, which I really like. We'll get back to that because that's a big thing to talk about. But realistically, what is the same and what is different is same is the way the game is played beyond how you get the cards. In both games, we're laying down cards. They lay down exactly the same, except one is horizontal and one is vertical. Otherwise, the tableau building rules are exactly the same. In both cases, you're using 3 scoring cards. Yes, 2 scoring cards in Circle the Wagons solo version, but in the 2-player game, it's a 3 scoring card as well. So you're using these score cards to give you bonus score goals. And you're also scoring based on your different terrain types and your largest area of each of those terrain types. Now in Circle the Wagon there are 6 different terrains, and in Sprawlopolis you've only got 4 different zone types, but it's the same idea. You find your biggest section or area of each type and score 1 point for every block in that type. So what's the difference? The biggest difference, and this is I think why I like Circle the Wagons much more than I like Sprawlopolis, is in the way that the cards are designed. So if we take a look at a card from Circle the Wagons, for example this card, on this card I see 3 of the same symbol and 4 different colors, or 4 different territory types. If I look at a card from Sprawlopolis, I see 4 different zone types. So they both have 4 different zone types. But watch this. If I look at another card from Circle the Wagons, you can see here that this one and this one are both the same terrain type. But if I look at another card from Sprawlopolis, what do you see? They both have 4 different terrain types. And if you look at these 2 cards, they're exactly the same except for roads. Granted, we could have another card like this, still 4, still 1 of each type. They're in different places, and then yes, the roads are different this time. But what I like about Circle the Wagons is that some of the cards have multiple areas of the same territory type. And some of the cards have up to 3 of the same color terrain type. And you might also get multiples of the same, for example here 2 guns, of the same symbol. So what that means is when I look at a card in Circle the Wagons, I can instantly see what part of that card is helpful for me for the scoring goals that I'm aiming for. And I can also focus on a card. If I need more snow territories, I should find that card that has 2 or 3 snow territory blocks on it. Or if I need more guns for my scoring goal, I'm going to look for those guns. So each time I look at a card in Circle the Wagons, I can immediately see the benefits and the downsides to that card. But when I'm playing Sprawlopolis and I have a hand of cards that looks like this, at first glance they all look exactly the same to me. Yes, I realize the roads are different. Yes, the colors are in slightly different orders. But my brain freezes as soon as I see this card because I don't really see the differences. And when I'm looking at how to play those cards and lay them down to match those goals, to score better, my brain really doesn't see the difference right away. And that makes the game really hard for me. And if you watch my playthrough today, you'll see that I very rarely had a clear idea or a good idea of where to put these cards down. And it just doesn't make the game very fun for me because it constantly feels like I have every option in the world. I can put things anywhere that I want to, and my eyes just don't see what makes that card good, where it should go. There's no real drive or direction for me. Whereas in Circle the Wagons, I know what I'm looking for. I can look at 2 cards and easily compare the 2 cards together. So for that reason, the tableau building in Circle the Wagons is so much better for me. And it plays so much more smoothly. And yes, it's challenging. Yes, I lost my playthrough at Circle the Wagons today, but that was a fun loss. I was really trying to beat that score. My Sprawlopolis plays, win or lose, I never feel like I accomplished anything. It was just sort of like, well, I laid the cards down today and I got this point. Or I laid down the cards today and I lost. It doesn't ever really feel, to me at least, that I have any control or any real idea what I'm doing as I'm doing it. And so for that reason, again, Circle the Wagons is my choice for the 2 games. Now that being said, don't get me wrong, Sprawlopolis is not a bad game, and if you watch other reviews, you will see there are many people who really enjoy Sprawlopolis. And there are many people who enjoy Sprawlopolis more than Circle the Wagons, and it does really good things for them. But again, I prefer Circle the Wagons, so let me come back and talk about Circle the Wagons one more time. Because the other thing that I haven't mentioned is the draft mechanic. And I really like this draft mechanic where if I take a card that's the first one available to me, that's great. I can skip it and take another one by giving my opponent another card. Which might be great, because if there's a card that really fits into my tableau that really works with what I'm aiming for, it might be worth sacrificing a card to my opponent to get that card and to score really well. But that's a really, really cool decision to me. Do I take the first card so they don't get anything? Do I take the second card to give me something that's okay but give them one card? Do I really sacrifice 2 cards to them to get something that I really, really want? Yeah, maybe I do, and I really like that decision. And even in the solo version of Circle the Wagons, you get that decision. And you get that decision even a little bit more because you understand exactly the rules that the AI in the scenario is going to use to draft their cards. So you can really sort of play against this AI scenario to your benefit. And I like that a lot. It really feels like a good challenge. Now, the Lone Cowboy expansion does come with 6 different scenarios. So I would recommend that you choose a scenario, try and beat it. And if you lose, keep trying and keep challenging that scenario until you beat it and move on to the next one. There's also a Lone Cowboy Rides Again that gives you another 3 scenarios on top of that. And there's also a printable version of a new expansion called More Lone Cowboy that gives you 3 more scenarios in addition to those first 2. So you've got 12 different solo scenarios. This game is not going to get stale. There's a lot of replayability here. And I'd be really surprised if you beat any of these scenarios on your first try with them. So you can keep playing and playing and playing, mixing up the different scenarios and mixing up the solo game quite a bit. So I really like Circle the Wagons. Now for Sprawlopolis, it doesn't work for me, but I know it works for a lot of people. And if you like what you saw in my playthrough, I would strongly recommend you get the game. It's a good game and there are a lot of people who really like it. Plus it's got those 4 expansions that I already showed you, which add some replayability to the game. And in addition, there's a whole lot more stuff coming out. Only just recently they released the Interstate expansion, which puts an interstate and splits your city into 2 pieces, which allows you to play a 2-player competitive version of the game. Or you can play a solo or 2-player cooperative version of the game as well, where you just have to build your city in 2 different pieces rather than as one large city. In addition to that, coming very soon, there's a whole new game called Agropolis, which takes this Sprawlopolis idea and puts it in a more rural setting with farms and livestock, and the different number of livestock in different areas will score different points. And the Agropolis will also come with a combo expansion that lets you combine Agropolis and Sprawlopolis together. I've had a chance to playtest both Agropolis and this combo expansion, and I would actually say for me, the combo of the 2 of them together made things a little bit more interesting for me. And let me explain why. When you combine the 2 games together, you're going to use a scoring card from each of the games, and then you're going to use a scoring card that's special from the combo expansion that scores off a combination of the 2 of them. And what this did for me was, in my hand I had cards from both games with different colors and different scoring conditions. I didn't have to worry that the cards were overlapping or fighting for scoring conditions, that I was losing points for one condition while gaining points for another condition. It very nicely split things in my brain. And when I looked at a card and I saw, oh, this has a farm on it, I'm going to aim for that condition with this card. And oh, this card has industrial district, and I'm scoring industrial districts for this scoring card. It really helped my brain figure out what is good about this card and what is good about that card. And as I explained earlier, that was my biggest frustration with Sprawlopolis. So again, if you like my playthrough of Sprawlopolis, I strongly recommend the game, and I definitely recommend you keep your eyes out for this Agropolis game as well as this combo expansion. In the meantime, keep having fun gaming. I'll be back soon with another video, and I'll see you soon.